The ancient world of Egypt was built on towering monuments, golden tombs, and immortal names etched in ancient artifacts. Cleopatra knew this better than anyone. She was not just a ruler, she was a master of image, of legacy, and careful planning. She spoke 9 languages, aligned herself with gods, and sailed the Nile as Isis incarnate. So why then does her final chapter vanish in dust? Welcome to various eras in time. Thank you for joining us on this mysterious journey of the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Now, let's continue on this quest of Cleopatra's lost tomb. Some say she never existed, and some say she was a seductive mythical character that brought down 2 famous Roman generals. Unlike the lavishly entombed pharaohs before her, Cleopatra left no grand burial site, no gilded sarcophagus, no resting place draped in lapis and linen, and that absence leads us to curiosity. A figure as monumental as Cleopatra disappears. It's either an act of erasure or a final act of defiance. Did she orchestrate her own vanishing to prevent Rome from parading her corpse through the streets as a trophy? Did loyalists smuggle her remains to sacred ground before Octavian had her corpse destroyed? Or could she be lying beneath the desert, hidden beneath a temple lost to time, waiting, just like her legend, to be uncovered? Cleopatra's death has become legendary, painted in poetry, reenacted on stage, and debated whether she was a mythical character that was fabricated in ancient times. The popular tale says she held an asp to her breast, choosing the serpent's kiss over Roman chains. This sounds poetic. So, was it true? No one knows. But history rarely grants such poetic exits without a price. The truth is, Cleopatra died in her private chamber in Alexandria's royal palace, surrounded by collapsing power and crumbling walls. Octavian, later known as Augustus, had cornered her world. Her kingdom was lost. Her lover, Marc Antony, died. And so, in the hush of that final hour, she made a choice. But what happened next, after her pulse stopped, and the room grew silent, is the true enigma. Did Octavian allow her to be buried with honor? Or did he use her death to send a message, discarding her remains like those of a defeated enemy? Some say she was entombed beside Antony, fulfilling her final wish. Others believe her body was burned, scattered, erased from history to prevent her from becoming a martyr. But none of these answers are certain. All we have is silence and time. And the final haunting question: where did the Queen of Egypt truly go? Octavian stood at the crossroads of empire and legend. With Cleopatra's death, he secured not only Egypt, but the end of the Roman Republic. But he also inherited a queen whose legend could outshine even his greatest triumph. Roman records tell us Octavian allowed Cleopatra and Antony to be buried together, honoring her final request. A gesture of mercy, or a calculated move to control the narrative? If true, then her body must have been laid to rest somewhere close to Alexandria, in a grand tomb fit for 2 fallen royals. But that tomb has never been found, not even a fragment, no inscription, no confirmed artifacts, nothing. And so the question persists: was she really buried? Some historians argue her body may have been cremated, scattered to prevent her from becoming a symbol of resistance. Others whisper she was quietly entombed in a location so secret only a handful ever knew where, and they took that secret to their own graves. Because if Cleopatra was more than a queen, if she was a goddess in the eyes of her people, then her tomb wasn't just a resting place. It was a threat. For years, archaeologists have combed the sands of Egypt in search of this vanished tomb, but no discovery has ignited more intrigue than the crumbling ruins near the ancient temple of Taposiris Magna. Located just 30 miles west of Alexandria, this once grand structure lies shrouded in mystery, half swallowed by time, battered by earthquakes and cloaked in legend. It's here that some believe Cleopatra may have chosen or been forced to rest eternally. Why? Because this site wasn't just sacred, it was powerful. Dedicated to Osiris, the god of the afterlife, it would have held immense religious meaning to a queen who so meticulously aligned herself with Isis, Osiris's divine consort. If Cleopatra truly saw herself as the living embodiment of Isis, then being buried here would have been more than symbolic. It would have been transformative. She would not be interred as a mortal ruler, but as a goddess returned to the earth. Recent excavations have unearthed coins bearing her image, mummies buried with gilded tongues, and secret passageways carved deep beneath the ruins. But still, no tomb. No sarcophagus, only riddles etched in limestone. Could Taposiris Magna be her final sanctuary? The deeper researchers dig, the more tantalizing the fragments become. In 2020, archaeologists uncovered a vast network of tunnels beneath Taposiris Magna, some stretching more than 4,000 feet, burrowing beneath the temple floor and snaking toward the bedrock. Carved with eerie precision, these subterranean corridors seem to have served no ordinary purpose. Could they have been part of a hidden funerary complex? A royal tomb protected by time and secrecy? In one chamber, relics were found, statues of Isis, pottery sealed with Cleopatra's insignia, and even ancient texts referencing the last pharaoh. It is as if the site whispers her name without ever speaking it. But here's the twist. Many of these tunnels are flooded, collapsed, or dangerously unstable, making full exploration almost impossible. It's as though the earth itself conspires to keep her secret. Are these structural ruins part of a decoy to mislead looters? Or was the Queen's tomb deliberately entombed within a labyrinth only the worthy or desperate could reach? Every echo in the darkness feels like a footstep toward revelation, or a warning to turn back. If Cleopatra chose Taposiris Magna as her final resting place, she didn't do so lightly. This was no mere monument, it was sacred ground, steeped in centuries of divine reverence. The temple was dedicated to Osiris, god of the afterlife, and legend holds that those buried there sought eternal protection. In ancient belief, to lie in Osiris's domain was to merge with immortality itself. Cleopatra, ever the strategist, may have chosen this sanctuary not only for spiritual reasons, but political ones too. Aligning herself with Osiris in death would have symbolically cast her as a living goddess, a divine ruler even in burial. But it also meant surrounding herself with guardian statues, spells, and sacred architecture meant to ward off intruders and secure her journey through the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. The placement of burial chambers, the arrangement of offering pits, even the directional flow of the tunnels all may have been designed with ancient funerary codes. These are not the works of coincidence. They are blueprints of devotion and secrecy. Could it be that her tomb, if hidden here, is protected by both the hand of man and the divine? And if so, what guardian still stands watch, just beyond reach? The ruins of Taposiris Magna have whispered secrets to those who dare listen. Archaeologists have uncovered coins bearing Cleopatra's image, carvings of Isis, and relics from the Ptolemaic period, each a puzzle piece teasing a grander truth. Some chambers lie collapsed or flooded, others sealed so tightly that even modern technology strains to see beyond. But here's where the story darkens. Time has not been kind to the site. Earthquakes, looters, and centuries of neglect have fractured the timeline. Walls have crumbled, inscriptions worn smooth, and passages lost beneath layers of sand and sediment. Yet still, every broken tile, every faded glyph, every statue eroded by time may hold a hidden code, a map to what lies beneath. What if the reason we haven't found Cleopatra's tomb isn't because it's not there, but because we're looking for something grand and opulent, when in truth, she may have chosen simplicity cloaked in symbolism? A chamber disguised as a servant's crypt, or a burial shaft mistaken for a storage tunnel? History, after all, has a cruel habit of hiding greatness in plain sight. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what Cleopatra intended. What if Cleopatra's tomb was never meant to be recognized, not by conquerors, not by looters, not even by time itself? This is the heart of what some call the disguised tomb theory, a belief that the final resting place of Egypt's last pharaoh was deliberately hidden, perhaps even made to look unremarkable. Cleopatra was a master of illusion, rhetoric, and symbolism. She knew how to cloak power in beauty and truth in mystery. As Rome tightened its grip on Egypt, perhaps she orchestrated her burial not as a grand farewell, but as an invisible escape. Historians have long noted the strange absence of royal funerary markers for Cleopatra. No temple inscriptions, no royal sarcophagus unearthed, no gilded funeral mask like Tutankhamun's. Could it be that her tomb was designed to look like no tomb at all? A chamber carved beneath a lesser shrine, a mausoleum merged with a temple facade, or even a double tomb where one entrance led to Antony and another to Cleopatra, hidden beneath false stone. If she planned it this way, then she didn't just outwit Octavian in life. She outwitted time itself. And maybe the tomb is there, right beneath our feet, pretending to be something else. Just west of Alexandria, near the Mediterranean coast, lies a wind-swept ruin cloaked in sun-bleached limestone and centuries of dust, Taposiris Magna. This ancient temple, dedicated to Osiris, god of the afterlife, has become the center of one of the most tantalizing modern hunts for Cleopatra's tomb. Archaeologist Dr. Kathleen Martinez has spent over a decade convinced that Cleopatra is buried here. Why? Because the temple, though Hellenistic in architecture, was infused with Egyptian spiritual symbolism, a perfect blend of the two cultures Cleopatra ruled over. It's close to where she lived. It aligns with her devotion to Isis, the goddess Cleopatra styled herself after. And perhaps most compelling of all, underground passages, burial shafts, and hidden chambers have been discovered here. Over 200 coins with her likeness, statues, relics, all whispering that something royal, something sacred lies beneath. Critics argue that Taposiris Magna was never meant for royal burials. But what if Cleopatra chose it precisely because no one would expect it? A place tied to gods, to transformation, to rebirth. A temple that symbolized her divine connection and her tragic fall. If her tomb is there, waiting just beyond the last sealed chamber, it would be the greatest archaeological discovery since Tutankhamun. And finally, it may rewrite everything we thought we knew about Egypt's last queen. Cleopatra did not see herself as merely mortal. To her people, and perhaps even to herself, she was Isis reborn, the goddess of life, magic, and resurrection. Throughout her reign, Cleopatra crafted her image carefully, aligning herself with divinity not just in art, but in ritual, symbolism, and public life. She was portrayed with the solar disk atop her head, the headdress of Isis, and stood alongside statues of gods in temples where pharaohs once walked. If she saw death coming, and all signs suggest she did, then surely she would have planned her end with the same theatrical precision that defined her rule. Would she not have chosen a burial site worthy of a living goddess? A place that reflected her union with the divine, a site that transcended royalty and reached toward immortality. It wouldn't be a common tomb in Alexandria, where Roman forces had destroyed so much. Nor would it be a public site vulnerable to desecration by her enemies. Instead, perhaps she sought a sacred, secret place, one tied not to power, but to eternity. If Cleopatra was buried in a temple to Osiris, it would symbolize more than death. It would symbolize transformation, resurrection, and her return to the stars. And maybe, just maybe, she believed her soul would live on, if not through her tomb, then through the myth she left behind. In 2009, whispers turned to excavation near a site few would have guessed, the Temple of Taposiris Magna, nestled near Lake Mariut on the outskirts of modern-day Alexandria. This temple, once dedicated to Osiris, the god of the underworld and rebirth, offered a compelling link to Cleopatra's ideology. Archaeologist Kathleen Martinez believed that this might be the place where Cleopatra and Marc Antony were secretly laid to rest. Her reasoning? The temple's name. Taposiris Magna translates to Great Tomb of Osiris, and if Cleopatra truly considered herself Isis, it would be fitting, poetic even so, she would wish to be buried alongside her eternal consort, within the symbolic embrace of Osiris himself. Martinez's dig uncovered clues that electrified the archaeological world. Coins bearing Cleopatra's image, statues, and a mysterious network of tunnels that stretched beneath the temple grounds. However, skeptics dismissed it. The temple was Roman and it was too far west. The architecture didn't match a royal tomb, but others argued just the opposite. Maybe that's why it made sense. Maybe the secrecy was the point. What better place to hide a queen so many wanted, erased, than in plain sight, buried in mystery beneath a temple of the gods, her resting place guarded not by armies, but by myth. As excavations pushed deeper beneath Taposiris Magna, the findings grew stranger and more compelling. Martinez and her team discovered burial shafts over 65 feet deep, carved into solid rock. These shafts weren't common tombs. They were ceremonial, sacred, and hidden, designed to deter thieves and, perhaps, historians. Within the depths, archaeologists unearthed mummies adorned in gold leaf, a rarity in Roman-era Egypt. One in particular was found sealed in a sarcophagus lined with delicate resin, a technique reserved for individuals of immense status. Could these be priests of Isis, royal advisors, or something more? Even more intriguing were the inscriptions. Dedications to Osiris, markings of rebirth, and symbols once believed exclusive to the royal house. Martinez argued that Cleopatra, the strategist, would have chosen such a site for its symbolism. Osiris represented resurrection. Isis, Cleopatra's divine counterpart, was the guardian of rebirth. If she wanted to pass into eternity, not just as queen, but as goddess, this temple would have been more than ideal. It would have been destiny. And then there were the tunnels, narrow, winding corridors cut beneath the temple. Where did they lead? What were they hiding? Were they once part of a funerary complex, or a royal deception? Beneath Taposiris Magna, the tunnels are narrow and treacherous, built not for ceremony but for concealment. Some collapse midway, others lead to sealed doorways or cryptic dead ends, as if their very design was intended to confuse, mislead, or protect. Kathleen Martinez and her team, guided by little more than instinct, intuition, and centuries-old texts, believe these tunnels were not random. They were carved with purpose, with intent, and that intent may have been to guard a queen. Imagine Cleopatra facing the end of her reign, orchestrating her burial as her final act of defiance. Rome had taken her kingdom, her love, her legacy, but they would never find her tomb. What if she ordered these shafts and corridors built in secrecy, directing her loyal priests to bury her deep beneath her chosen temple, wrapped in rituals so ancient even the Roman conquerors would not dare disturb them? Some believe the tunnels may have once connected chambers, now sealed by earthquakes or floods, or that deeper beneath the bedrock, a crypt remains untouched, perfectly preserved. Others whisper of decoys, false tombs meant to distract or protect the real resting place of Egypt's last pharaoh. The real question is, have we been walking just inches above Cleopatra all along? If Cleopatra truly rests beneath Taposiris Magna, then she may lie just meters beyond reach, separated from discovery by walls of limestone and centuries of silence. In 2022, Martinez's team uncovered a subterranean corridor buried 13 meters below the temple, perfectly preserved, untouched by looters, untouched by time. This was no coincidence. This was architecture meant to endure. The tunnel stretched longer than expected, leading nowhere and everywhere. Why build such a corridor if not to protect something or someone? Inside, remnants of burial niches, shattered urns, and alabaster fragments were found, clues suggesting this was once sacred ground, but no inscriptions, no sarcophagus, just the feeling of something unfinished or perfectly hidden. What if this corridor was never meant to be seen again? What if it was the final act of a queen who knew her name would be hunted, her memory rewritten? Cleopatra may have orchestrated not only her death, but her eternal disappearance, placing her tomb just outside the reach of time, buried beneath a temple where the gods she loved still lingered in shadow. In the end, perhaps Cleopatra didn't just outwit Rome in life, but in death. Maybe she crafted her tomb not as a monument to be found, but as a message never meant to be fully read, a final riddle whispered beneath layers and centuries of silence. She was a strategist, a queen of theater and shadow. The world believes she ended her story in sorrow. But what if that, too, was part of her plan? What if her tomb lies just beyond the wall, waiting for one final moment to rise from myth into history? What if her greatest victory was disappearing? Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through dust, legend, and mystery. If this story stirred your imagination and curiosity, please subscribe to various eras in time. Like, share, and tell us in the comments below, where do you think Cleopatra truly rests?